Hey everyone, it's Dr. Nightstare. Glad you're here. Before we get into it, hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Quick question before we start. Where are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? Alright, let's get settled. Get comfortable, let your body relax, and just take it easy. The agony, a constant crushing weight in my chest for 13 years, vanished in an instant. The dull ache, the shallow breaths, the burning just beneath my ribs. All of it lifted, leaving a strange, hollow relief. I stared at Phelan, standing there in her white dress beside Dexter and Zach, and the words I had rehearsed for months spilled from my mouth. "You are all dead to me." My voice, raspy from years of suppressed suffering, sliced through the elegant wedding reception. The air around us seemed to crackle. Dexter grabbed Zach, his fingers sinking into Zach's neck, and Zach's scream became a guttural noise. They fell to the floor in a tangle of limbs, tearing at clothes, skin, and hair with desperate hunger. Blood sprayed onto the white linen tablecloths. Their bodies thrashed, then grew still, lying broken among overturned chairs. Phelan, her face now twisted, turned her eyes toward Dexter's crumpled form and lunged. Her hands clawed at his chest, seeking something hidden, something vital. I felt a sudden impact, a sharp pain in my side, and the world spun. Darkness took me then. Then I woke up. I lay in my bed, the morning sun on my face, completely unharmed. It began in 4th grade. Miss Albright gave us a red thread for an art project. Phelan suggested we bind our friendship. Dexter, Zach. I extended hands. The crimson strand tangled wrists and fingers. We pulled, skin reddening, laughing through discomfort. That red thread, knotted, frayed, lived in a wooden box by my bed. Our bond deepened. I watched Phelan, a feeling blooming inside me. Dexter had been quiet until my mother invited him for dinner. Her kindness transformed him into a loyal friend. I saw his hand find Phelan's beneath the school desk. Their romance blossomed. The summer before I moved, we went to Blackwood Lake. The moon reflected on the still water. Phelan pulled the red thread from her pocket. We held it taut, a fragile circle. Our young voices whispered words from an ancient book. By blood and heart, by memory and soul, we bind ourselves forever whole. Through time and distance, joy and strife, our thread unbroken, eternal life. We pricked fingers, letting blood stain the thread. We intertwined fates, unknowingly setting a terrible price. 13 years later, Phelan appeared at my mother's funeral. She stood near the casket, thinner than I remembered, eyes shadowed. We spoke after the sparse ceremony in a quiet corner. Her low, broken voice revealed their constant physical heartache and souls fallen described as poisoned, corrupted. That pain manifested in severe health crises, leaving them weak and constantly unwell. They attempted polyamory, staying together, all three of them, in desperate attempts to soothe the relentless agony. Physical closeness offered a temporary reprieve from the relentless burden, a fleeting peace. Phelan said they had journeyed to New York years ago, seeking me, believing my presence might sever the connection or heal their torment. My mother intercepted them, sending them away with stern warnings. Phelan's confession ended abruptly. She vanished soon after, leaving no trace. Weeks later, symptoms began in me. My lungs suddenly refused air. Thick blood stained my tongue, and cardiac pain followed, a sharp, twisting sensation deep in my chest. Each symptom confirmed the pact's terrifying power, my body mimicking their suffering, a delayed consequence of our separation. This prolonged agony, compounded by Phelan's betrayal and my mother's deliberate interference, intensified my rage. I crashed Phelan's wedding, driven by a desperate need for answers, closure, and an end to the unbearable connection that bound us all. The sun rises again. It always does. I know the exact moment the light hits the wall, the exact chirping of the same birds. I know I will wake up unharmed, even after the last scream, the last tearing of flesh. The loop begins anew. Some days, Dexter and I hunt Zach. Other times, Phelan and I track Dexter through the abandoned streets, our breaths ragged, our eyes empty. We are condemned to this grotesque dance, a daily murder, a daily resurrection. Each time the world resets, a part of me remains lost, a piece of my former self chipped away. My heart feels like a hollow chamber, echoing with forgotten feeling. Dexter changed most of all. He moves with a chilling precision, his eyes bright with a hungry curiosity I had never seen before. He became a connoisseur of suffering, a meticulous artisan of pain. His fascination settled on the human heart, on the invisible thread he knew bound us. He started his experiments in the old deserted factory at the edge of town, converting it into a grim laboratory. I saw the tools, gleaming on rusted metal tables, the unsettling diagrams scrawled on the walls, charting pathways, connections, bloodlines. He needed to understand the mechanics of our torment. One cycle, Dexter cornered me in the factory. His gaze pinned me, devoid of old affection, filled with a terrible purpose. He didn't want to kill me then. He strapped me down to a cold table, his movements precise, almost surgical. I felt the sharp slice of the scalpel on my chest, a cold line opening my skin. My blood welled up, warm and sticky. I watched his face, rapt, as he reached inside. His fingers explored, searching through my flesh, bypassing bone and muscle. Then he found it. He pulled something out, a thin, glistening strand, blood red and wet like a living vein. It quivered in his gloved hand, pulsing with an unnatural rhythm. He cut it, and I felt a deep wrench, an untangling within my very core. When he released me, the world felt thinner. My body felt less solid. I was no longer whole. My being had changed at a fundamental level. I walked away from the factory, a shadow of my previous self. I stumbled through the empty streets. The strangeness of my altered state, a new kind of pain. I returned to my childhood home, a place of constant returns. There, tucked away in the back of my mother's old cedar chest, I found a charred box. Inside lay thousands of letters, black at the edges, brittle to the touch. The scent of smoke still clung to them. My mother's careful handwriting filled the pages. Her pleas for help from Phelan, from Dexter, from Zach were clear. Her urgent warnings to them, not to find me, not to tell me, confirmed her deliberate interference. She knew. She had kept them away, trapped us all in this agony. The full weight of her betrayal landed, crushing me with its truth. Days later, a small package arrived in the mail. It held a single, burnt red thread. It was identical to the thread from our childhood pact. The edges were seared, a stark warning. I held it, a terrible premonition settling over me, knowing the loop was about to break, and a new, more terrifying phase of our poisoned existence would begin. I often think about the world outside my windows, a place of constant noise and pointless hurry, and I am glad I do not have to be a part of it anymore. People rush through their days chasing things that do not matter, building walls around themselves with their worries and their anger, forgetting the simple truth of what life should be. They live in a sickness, I believe, a quiet desperation that they never truly acknowledge, and they continue hurting each other without ever truly seeing the damage they inflict. I chose this quiet existence many years ago, retreating from the bitterness and the empty pursuits that seem to consume everyone else. Here, surrounded by the only things that truly make sense, I have found a lasting contentment, an honest joy. Clowns are different. They understand the absurdity of it all. Their painted smiles, their exaggerated movements, these are not disguises, but rather honest expressions of a deeper truth. They show us that it is all a show, a grand spectacle, and that laughter is the only honest response to the chaos. They offer pure emotion without the complicating layers of betrayal or pretense that define human interaction. I have dedicated my life to understanding that truth, to collecting these beautiful, silent teachers who remind me every day of what I left behind. This house, secluded and peaceful, is not just a home, but a gallery of pure happiness. My collection spans every wall in this room, carefully arranged on polished shelves and pedestals. There are porcelain clowns with chipped ruffles, their faces eternally amused, standing next to wooden figures with articulated limbs, poised as if ready to tumble. Fabric clowns, stuffed with forgotten dreams, lean against more modern plastic creations, each one unique but all sharing that essential spirit. A small, hand-carved jester from Bavaria, its capped bells still, sits beside a large, almost life-sized clown doll with real human hair, a magnificent piece I found at an estate sale years ago. Its eyes, made of clear glass, seem to follow me as I move about the room, always watching, always understanding. Other clowns include a miniature circus troupe, perfectly posed, and a series of painted portraits depicting various famous clowns of old, each brushstroke capturing their essence. Each piece tells a story, a chapter in my ongoing education about joy, about the simple honesty of a laugh. This room provides all the company I could ever need, a quiet audience for my thoughts. Outside, the summer sun shines bright on the tall grass, but inside, here with my friends, everything feels exactly as it should be, perfectly still and perfectly mine. The afternoon sun beat down on my long driveway, making the air ripple above the gravel. I watched the shimmer from my window, content in my cool house, when a bright yellow and red appeared at the end of the lane. A man stood there, unmistakably a clown, his face painted white with a wide red smile and round red cheeks. His yellow jumpsuit stood out against the green of the tall grass, and a bright red nose sat perfectly on his face. He carried a deflated balloon animal in one hand, its limp form swaying with the slight breeze. My heart gave a little jump, a quiet thrill stirring inside me. A real clown here at my home. I walked to the front door, my steps light, opening it to the intense summer warmth. The clown, seeing me, offered a small wave. "Excuse me, sir," he called out, his voice a little hoarse from the heat. "I seem to be a bit lost. My name is Joe Jangles, and I am trying to find the Peterson residence for a birthday party." He gestured vaguely down the road. "Do you know if I am anywhere near it?" His eyes, beneath the painted brows, looked tired but friendly. "Oh, no," I replied, a genuine smile spreading across my face. "You are quite a way off from the Petersons. They live on the other side of town entirely." I felt a sudden rush of hospitality. The man looked parched and hot. "Please, it is far too warm to stand out there. Come in for a moment, Joe Jangles. I can give you some water and better directions from inside." I stepped back, holding the door open wide, inviting the cheerful, misplaced figure into my peaceful world. He looked relieved and gratefully stepped over the threshold. I gestured towards a comfortable armchair among my collection, and Joe Jangles gratefully settled down. I poured him a glass of cool water from the kitchen, and we spoke about the summer heat and the peculiar nature of children's parties. He told me he enjoyed making children laugh, finding a simple purity in their joy. "I've been with Fun Time Affairs for about 2 months now," he said, taking a long drink. "It's a good company, much better than my last gig." The casual mention of his employment, the length of time, brought a cold clarity to my thoughts. 2 months. That was the missing piece. The pattern solidified in my mind. My hand went to the polished head of a display hammer I kept nearby, a tool for precise adjustments to my porcelain figures. Its weight felt familiar in my grip. Joe Jangles chuckled, about to tell another anecdote, when I brought the hammer down. It landed with a dull sound, a wet impact against his painted skull. His body slumped forward, silent and still, the water glass spilling across the rug. The red smile on his face seemed to deepen in death, a final, unseeing grin. I cleaned the spilled water. Joe Jangles slumped in the armchair, his red smile fixed and lifeless. I lifted him from the chair, carrying him to the old root cellar. There, I dug a shallow grave. I covered his bright costume with soil, smoothing the dirt. No one would find him. His yellow car sat on the gravel. I drove it miles down the logging road to the abandoned quarry. I backed the car to the edge, letting it roll silently into the deep water. The quiet splash faded. The surface showed nothing. My collection felt incomplete without a new figure. As Joe Jangles was not a display piece, my experience confirmed they began with good intentions, but they changed, growing corrupt. 2 months was the usual time before they decayed. I needed a fresh clown, untainted. I found a new agency online, Smile Makers Entertainment. Their website showed cheerful pictures. I typed a request for a clown to entertain at a small, private gathering, giving my address and a preferred time. I specified a new clown, one with a clear, honest smile, emphasizing a fresh face. I made the fee generous to attract the person I sought. The trap was set. I returned to my room, waiting among my quiet collection. The large clown doll's glass eyes watched me. Outside, the summer sun dipped lower. Another day would bring another clown, another opportunity to find a display piece, untarnished and true, before the world could spoil it. I felt a rising peace. My collection would grow. My eyes fluttered open slowly, and a persistent pain throbbed behind them. I tried to push myself up, but my head pounded, forcing me back down onto a rough surface beneath me. A dull ache spread from my scalp, and when I reached to touch it, my fingers came away sticky with a crusted substance. My vision swam as I looked around the room, presenting blurred shapes and dull colors. My mind contained no memories, only a vast emptiness, leaving me bewildered. I knew nothing about where I was or how I had arrived here. My own name remained elusive, a blank space where identity should have been. A tightening panic spread through my chest. I felt alone, hurt, and completely lost in this place. The air felt still. It was cold, prickling my skin with a growing dread. The door creaked open and a woman stepped inside. She smiled. Her hair was pulled back from her face. Her dress was a pale yellow color. She carried a metal basin and a clean cloth. Her eyes held an unnerving brightness. "Oh, dearie, look at this mess," she cooed. Her voice carried a sweetness that felt wrong. "We simply cannot have you looking like this." She moved with a speed that startled me. She set the basin down on the floor. The water sloshed inside. She wrung out the cloth. A medicinal scent filled the air, mingling with the smell of old wood. She reached for my head. I flinched away. Flinched away. "No, please, what's going on?" I asked. My voice cracked. Her smile did not waver. It seemed plastered there. Her grip was firm and strong. She dipped the cloth into the basin. The water felt lukewarm against my skin. She began to clean the dried blood from my hair. The rough cloth scraped my scalp. It stung with a sharp intensity. Water trickled down my face, getting into my eyes and mouth. It tasted of antiseptic, bitter and chemical. My body tensed. I tried to pull back again, but her hand pressed against my forehead, holding my head captive. She held me still. After she finished, she stood back. She surveyed her work. "Much better," she declared. Her hands went to my clothes. My worn shirt was torn. She ripped it further. The fabric came away. I was left exposed. My skin felt cold and vulnerable. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice weak. She picked up a soft, clean garment. It was too large for me. The material was thin cotton. It felt scratchy. She slipped it over my head. Her fingers brushed my skin. I shivered. The fabric was rough against my aching head. She pushed my arms through the sleeves. She smoothed the material over my chest. She fastened something at my back. I could not reach it. I felt trapped inside the new clothing. "There, a clean boy," she chirped. She patted my cheek. It was a demeaning gesture. I felt helpless. My questions were left unanswered. My body was not my own. The woman left me alone in the sterile room. I stood for a moment, the flimsy cotton garment clinging to my skin, a new uniform of submission. A spark ignited within me, a raw defiance against the violation. I would not simply accept this fate. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat urging me forward. I stumbled towards the door, the only exit I had seen. My fingers closed around the cold metal handle. I twisted it, pushing with all my strength. The door did not budge. It felt solid, unyielding. I pulled, gritting my teeth, my entire body straining. The handle remained fixed. No click, no give, just an immovable barrier. Panic surged, a cold wave washing over the brief spark of courage. I beat my fists against the wood, a dull thud echoing in the small space. My knuckles ached with each impact. The door remained steadfast, mocking my efforts. I turned from the door, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My eyes darted around the room, searching for another possibility. The single window was high on the wall, a small, grimy rectangle. I dragged a heavy wooden stool, the only furniture apart from the bed, beneath it. I climbed onto the stool, stretching my fingers towards the glass. It was thick, opaque, and set deep within the wall. I pressed my hand against it. The glass felt cold, unyielding. There was no latch, no crack, no way to open it. It was simply a sealed part of the wall, a window that offered no view and no escape. I slid down from the stool, my legs weak. I ran my hands over the walls, searching for any seam, any weakness. They were smooth, plastered, and cold to the touch. The corners met seamlessly. No gaps, no hidden panels, nothing to indicate a way out. This room was a complete enclosure. My throat tightened with despair. My frantic search had yielded only absolute containment. A soft, almost imperceptible whisper drifted through the air, seeming to come from the very walls themselves. The voice was low, raspy, barely there. "Don't try to leave." I froze, my blood chilling in my veins. I spun around, searching the empty room. There was no one else here. My eyes scanned every shadow, every corner. Nothing moved. The air still felt cold. The voice had been real, a chilling presence in the suffocating quiet. It confirmed my worst fear. This prison was not just physical, it held a watchful, unseen presence. The last fragile thread of my hope snapped. I stood frozen, the chilling whisper still in my mind. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, useless rhythm. The door suddenly burst open. The woman, her smile bright, stood there. Behind her, 2 men filled the doorway. They wore simple clothing. Their faces were still. "Naughty boy," she cheesked. Her voice became sharp. "Mommy said no. Mommy knows best." The men stepped forward. I tried to back away, to shout, but my voice caught. Hands seized my arms, pinning them. I struggled, twisting, kicking, but their grip was firm. They held me. The woman approached, holding a small syringe. "Time for your nap, dearie," she said. Her eyes were cold. The needle pierced my skin. A burning spread through my arm, my vision blurred. The room spun. My struggles weakened. I could not fight. They laid me on the bed. The woman stroked my hair. "Good boy," she murmured. "We are your family now. You belong to us." Darkness encroached. My body felt heavy. I was utterly defeated, unable to move, unable to think, completely in their control. We returned to the house, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows through the living room windows. It was a friend of a friend's place, and we had spent the day exploring the small town, happy to be house-sitting for the week. The husky mix Cooper greeted us with his enthusiastic tail wags and happy yips. I unclipped his leash, and he bounded out into the fenced backyard for his final potty break of the evening. Maya went to the kitchen for a glass of water. Soon Cooper was back inside, shaking off the last bits of coolness from outside. My girlfriend and I collapsed onto the sectional couch. It was large and soft, a familiar comfort already settling over us. The day's pleasant exhaustion settled into me. Maya leaned her head against my shoulder. "What do you feel like for dinner?" she asked, her voice soft and content. We considered our options, completely at peace in the quiet house, ready for a relaxed evening. A peculiar fogginess settled over my mind, making my thoughts feel sluggish and distant. The comfortable edges of the living room blurred, and a strange unreality settled within me. I felt off-kilter, quietly disconnected. My relaxed feeling evaporated, replaced by a vague, unsettling sensation I could not understand. Maya's voice, still discussing pasta, seemed to reach me from just beyond my immediate perception. Cooper, usually settled in a gentle snore after his evening relief, suddenly became agitated. He lifted his head sharply, ears perked towards the back of the house. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest, a sound entirely different from his playful vocalizations. He stared with intense focus at the laundry room door, connecting to the backyard. His tail was not wagging. He let out a sharp, urgent bark, startling me from my thoughts. He walked towards the door, then turned back, pressing his head hard against my leg, nudging my hand with his wet nose. He did the same to Maya, whimpering softly. His dark eyes darted from us to the door, back and forth, a clear message of distress. He barked again, louder, more insistent, his entire body rigid with an unspoken warning. The dread coiled tight in my stomach, a cold, hard knot. Maya stood, her face etched with a fear that mirrored my own. She walked towards the laundry room door, her movements stiff. Her hand went to the small taser she had pulled from her pocket. She gripped it, her knuckles white. Cooper stood at her side, his low growl now a continuous rumble, fixed on the door. Maya reached for the doorknob, turning it with excruciating slowness. She took a breath and eased the door open just a crack. A sudden, jarring force slammed against the wood from the other side, shoving the door inward with brutal strength. It ripped the doorknob from Maya's grasp. She shrieked, a piercing sound of pure terror, as she instinctively lunged forward, throwing her full weight against the door. The wood scraped against the frame, and she managed to force it shut with a resounding thud. Her breath came in ragged gasps. Cooper barked hysterically, a frantic, desperate sound. "Lock it!" I screamed, scrambling off the couch. My hands shook as I grabbed a heavy armchair, dragging it towards the door. Maya fumbled with the deadbolt, her fingers trembling before it clicked into place. The sound of her frantic breathing filled the room. We shoved the armchair hard against the door, wedging it under the knob. My eyes darted around the living room, searching for something, anything. I raced to the kitchen, yanking open a drawer and seizing the largest knife I could find. My hands were slick with sweat. I turned, clutching the knife, seeing Maya already pulling her phone from her pocket. Her fingers flew across the screen, dialing 911. Her voice was a terrified whisper as she spoke into the phone, her eyes wide with unblinking horror. The arrival of the police cars was a jarring, welcome sight. Officers entered the house, their flashlights cutting through the dimness of our living room. They questioned us, their voices calm and professional, while other officers swept the backyard. One of them returned from the back porch and confirmed they found wet footprints on the ground leading away from the house. They assured us that the area was clear and secure, telling us we were safe for the night. They checked every window and door, finding no signs of forced entry. Maya and I sat huddled on the couch, our bodies still trembling, trying to process their words. Then one officer, after examining the laundry room door, knelt to inspect the deadbolt. He stood up slowly and looked at us. "The deadbolt," he said. "It was still locked from the inside." My breath caught in my throat. Maya gripped my arm, her nails digging into my skin. The deadbolt on the inner door, the very one Maya had locked after the shove, had remained engaged the entire time. No one could have pushed against it from the outside if it was locked. We stared at the door, then at each other, a profound and horrifying bewilderment settling deep in our minds. We did not understand how anyone had pushed against the door, and the thought that we had never truly been alone remained, a terror without explanation. I surfaced from slumber, my head aching, bandages pressing my eyes. A warm hand settled on my arm. "He's waking up." Mia's clear voice reached me. Grandma's steady presence grounded me, her words a comfort. "How do you feel?" The pain behind my eyes was a constant throb, a reminder of the surgery, but I clung to the promise of sight. Dr. Evans had warned of a long recovery, yet the thought of light returning fueled my resolve, though a quiet apprehension lingered. Mia's goodbye kiss brushed my forehead, and Grandma's hand squeezed mine one last time. Their footsteps receded, the quiet click of the door marking their departure. I was alone in the room. The lingering scent of antiseptic and Grandma's lavender hand cream lulled me into a shallow doze. Time blurred, then I stirred, pulling myself back from the edges of sleep. The comforting hospital sounds were gone. No distant gurney squeaked past. No muted voices drifted from the hallway. An oppressive quiet filled the air, replacing the expected background noise. I heard nothing but the rhythmic throb behind my eyes. I shifted, trying to adjust my left arm, but something held it fast, resisting my movement. My free hand traced the surface. It felt rough and lumpy, with a coarse texture against my skin. I reasoned this must be a medical precaution, a restraint meant to keep me from disturbing the bandages or an IV line. No nurse checked on me, and no doctor made rounds. The silence continued, deepening, pressing in. My initial calm dissolved. A cold feeling spread through my chest. It grew into a raw panic. Where was everyone? This was not the hospital I had entered. It was no longer sterile or predictable. This place felt empty, wrong, stripped of safety. A cold draft snaked around my bare arm. Then a sickeningly sweet odor filled my nostrils, thick with the smell of old blood and decay. A presence stood beside me, not quite solid, yet profoundly there. It radiated a malevolent chill. A voice spoke, a harsh imitation of Grandma's gentle cadence, flat and cold. "You want to see, little one, don't you?" My free hand was lifted, guided by an unseen force towards something close. My fingers brushed against a surface that felt cold, like stone, yet yielding like old leather. Ridges ran across it, hard and sharp, then a cavernous indentation, a hollow eye socket, and a protruding knob of bone. This was a face. It was not human. A dry, rasping laugh emerged, not from a mouth I could feel, but from everywhere at once, a knowing laugh that understood my terror. The lumpy texture on my arm, the thing that had held me, now seemed to pulse. It tightened, revealing itself not as a medical device, but as a living limb, part of this creature. A coil wrapped around my neck, tightening around my throat, constricting my breath. Pain shot through my restrained arm as the entity pulled, stretching my muscles to their limit. Another part clamped onto my head, its bony digits digging into my scalp, pressing in on my skull. Then a sharp tug, a searing pain, and the bandages ripped from my eyes. A blinding flash of light followed by a blur of grotesque shapes, a forced vision that pierced the pain. The entity's breath, foul and hot, whispered against my face. "You see, little one, you see." My eyes snapped open, a sudden jolt pulling me from the grip of the monster. Light poured into my vision, overwhelming and beautiful. Doctors and nurses moved around my bed, their faces clear, their voices a symphony of calm professionalism. I saw the sterile white walls, the gentle green of the monitor screens, the vibrant colors of the flowers on the windowsill. The world was there, brilliant and sharp, a gift I had yearned for. Yet the clarity of my vision was tainted. The grotesque shapes, the cold, leathery face, the tightening coils, they burned behind my newly seeing eyes, an indelible image. Dr. Evans stood over me, a kind but weary smile on his face. "You're awake," he said, his voice reassuring. "The surgery was a success. We had a slight complication, an infection that spiked your fever, but we brought it under control. The heavy sedation gave you some vivid hallucinations, a common side effect." He spoke with calm authority, his words meant to soothe. I pushed myself up, my voice hoarse. No, it was real. Something was here. It tore the bandages off. It hurt me. Dr. Evans shook his head, his smile fading slightly. "Just the medication playing tricks. Your mind was fighting the infection. You were never unrestrained, and your bandages were removed gently this morning. There's nothing to worry about now." I looked down at my left wrist. Across my skin, deep blood-red lines scored the flesh. They were not fresh wounds, but angry, undeniable scars, the exact shape of whatever had held me fast. The doctors saw them too, but they only murmured about strange reactions to sedatives or pressure marks from my unconscious thrashing. No one believed me. They would never believe me. The physical proof was there, a chilling testament to my intimate terror, but the world had moved on. I saw everything now, but I also carried a vision no one else could share, a secret agony hidden beneath the surface of my new, perfect sight. The sudden, aggressive knock startled me, echoing too loudly in the otherwise quiet apartment where I had been enjoying a rare moment of peace. I moved to the door and peered through the peephole, my heart already picking up its pace. 2 officers stood outside, their uniforms crisp and their posture unnaturally rigid. What struck me first were their smiles, identical and unsettling, stretching across faces that were also identical. I opened the door a crack, gripping the cool metal of the doorknob with a sudden urge to pull it shut again. "Yes?" I asked, my voice sounding a little too tight. "Welfare check," the officer on the left said, his voice smooth and even, his gaze sweeping past me into the apartment. The phrase felt wrong coming from him, laced with an unspoken command. Their identical gazes lingered on my face, then drifted past my shoulder, making the hairs on my arms stand up. A cold certainty settled in my stomach. This was not a simple welfare check. The officers stepped across the threshold without waiting, their identical gazes fixed on the apartment's interior. My stomach clenched as I watched them. Their movements were precise, synchronized, a cold efficiency that felt like a deliberate invasion. They did not speak. The quiet from their presence filled the room, demanding my full attention. One officer moved toward the small entryway table, his fingers tracing its edge while his eyes scanned the space above. The other walked directly into the living room, his head turning slowly, observing every object, every corner. I stood frozen in the doorway, a tightening sensation in my chest. I felt their close inspection, my home, every item, now completely open under their unsettling view. They touched nothing, but their focused attention stripped away any sense of security. They moved through my belongings with a strange grace, their unnerving focus creating a stark feeling of being exposed. They were searching for something specific, and I sensed it, though no accusation left their lips. They then proceeded into the kitchen, their eyes cataloging every utensil and appliance with unnerving detail. I could feel their presence in the next room, a cold sensation settling in my core. They returned from the kitchen, finding nothing. Their eyes swept over me one last time. Irritation showed on their identical faces. The officer on the left offered a quick, shallow apology. The words sounded practiced, purely formal. Then they turned and moved toward the door. They departed abruptly. The click of the latch echoed, followed by the soft closing of the door. I stood there, a sudden lightness filling my chest. Relief surged through me, a certainty that the inspection was finished and my secret was secure. The click of the latch echoed, followed by the soft closing of the door. I stood there, a sudden lightness filling my chest. Relief surged through me, a certainty that the inspection was finished and my secret was secure. The chill of their presence began to fade, replaced by a warm, insidious triumph that spread through my veins. They had searched, they had lingered, but they had found nothing. They never could. The human skin I wore had been an effective shield. I moved away from the door. My steps now carried a predatory confidence. I walked to the bookcase built into the far wall of the living room, the one the officers had merely glanced at, their search focused on more conventional hiding spots. My fingers traced the spine of a worn, leather-bound volume. I pressed it firmly, and the entire section of shelving, not merely the door behind it, began to recede with a soft whirring sound. A cool, damp air flowed from the newly revealed opening. I stepped through the hidden passage, the scent of ancient stone and something metallic and vital filling my senses. The space was narrow and dark, unlike any part of the apartment they had investigated. With a deliberate motion, I reached to my face, my fingers finding the edges of the carefully constructed mask. The synthetic skin peeled away with a wet, tearing sound, revealing the true surface beneath. My brown human eyes sharpened, becoming multiple deep crimson facets that glowed. My posture shifted, spine elongating, limbs thickening, and the soft fabric of the shirt I wore stretched and ripped as bony plates erupted from my back. The disguise fell to the floor, a crumpled heap of cloth and latex. I flexed my clawed digits, the air around me crackling with a faint energy. They had been looking for a person, a human anomaly, perhaps a runaway or a subversive. They had found the perfect imitation, a convincing shell. They had left empty-handed, utterly oblivious to the true inhabitant of this dwelling. I had orchestrated a deception. I was the architect of its success. They were simply pawns in a much larger game. The client entered my apartment, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. He spoke quickly about a desired cessation of feeling, an emptiness he believed I possessed. I understood his hunger for release, a longing for the quiet absence I experienced constantly. I retrieved the forbidden neural patch from its secure case. Its intricate wiring represented the only means of extraction, a device I trusted to strip away his every vibrant emotion. He watched me with wide, desperate eyes as I positioned the electrodes onto his temples. I then pressed the small activation button. I fully expected to witness the draining, the gradual hollowing out of his spirit, leaving him entirely unfeeling. He lay upon the worn cot, offering himself without hesitation, unknowing of the deeper, far darker exchange about to unfold within the sterile confines of this room. A guttural cry tore from the client's throat, his body wrenched on the cot. His hands clawed at the worn fabric, as if trying to tear away from an unseen torment. His face flushed with deep red spreading across his cheekbones, followed by a sudden pallor. Color erupted around me. Crimson bled into the worn cot's fabric. The steel table shimmered with a spectrum of green. The sterile white walls presented intricate patterns of soft violet and deep indigo. The air itself carried a current of warmth against my skin, a soft pressure I now registered. A sensation of 100 tiny pins pricking my fingertips spread through my limbs, feeling intense. My ears registered the distinct rustle of his clothes, the soft intake of his breath, the subtle shift of air in the room. The client's eyes were blank, devoid of feeling, yet his mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. A rattling laugh erupted from him, devoid of joy, echoing in the confined space. It was a sound of absolute emptiness, an affirmation that the flow moved in the opposite direction, that I was the receiver. Calm detachment in their depths. He reached for a small silver letter opener that lay on the table, its polished surface reflecting the strange new colors I saw. He pressed its sharp point against his forearm, then drew a clean line across his skin. Blood welled up, a vibrant red against his pale flesh, and with its appearance, a sudden burning ache flared in my own arm. The sensation was immediate and intense, a sharp sting that made my muscles contract involuntarily, yet it held a captivating energy. This rush of pure feeling, a pain I had never known, overwhelmed me completely. I registered the warmth of his blood on my own skin, an impossible connection that felt utterly real. He looked at his bleeding arm, then lifted his gaze to me. His movements were precise, devoid of any hesitation as he shifted his weight. He lunged forward, the letter opener now aimed directly at my thigh. The blade plunged into my flesh. A searing spike of agony erupted in my leg, an explosion of torment that stole my breath. This pain was exquisite, a crescendo of all the new feelings crashing into me at once. I felt the tearing of muscle and the hot gush of blood, yet a frantic, dizzying joy bubbled up from deep within me. Hysterical laughter tore from my throat, a sound raw and foreign to my own ears. I wanted more of it, this incredible, overwhelming feeling. I reached out a trembling hand to him, my voice ragged with an urgent plea, and told him to continue. I wanted him to do it again, to feel this entire world of sensation burst inside me until nothing else existed. He raised the letter opener, his eyes showing no feeling as he prepared to strike again. My leg burned with a new agony, an intense tearing that made me gasp. I felt my own blood now soaking through my clothes, hot and sticky against my skin. Another stab pierced my other thigh, then my arm. Each impact sent a fresh wave of overwhelming sensation through me. My vision swam with the vivid reds and purples of pain, a wide range of torment and exhilaration. My body convulsed, but my laughter continued, a frantic, desperate sound. I wanted him to carve out every nerve, to make me feel everything at once. Then, as his empty gaze settled upon me, something shifted in my understanding. His eyes now held a knowing satisfaction. A different kind of coldness settled over me, a void born of the overwhelming sensation. His movements were too practiced, too precise for a man seeking relief from his own suffering. He did not seek to empty himself. He created. He had no emotions to lose. He possessed only an emptiness he wished to spread, to reproduce in others. He had found me, a creature of pure void, and made me into him. I was not the extractor of feelings. I was the recipient of his corruption, a vessel for his terrifying self. I was the first. He had filled me with his own brand of suffering, his desolate existence now made whole in my new being. The patch had never been for his escape, but for my creation, the first step in his design to replicate his terrifying state. My screams mingled with my laughter, an agonizing blend of sounds, and I knew I was simply the beginning of his endless, twisted process. The screen door slammed, breaking the evening's calm. My teacup rattled against its saucer on the kitchen table. I walked toward the front door, expecting to scold the neighborhood kids. My hand reached for the handle but stopped inches from the wood. Standing on my porch, illuminated by the dim porch light, was a girl. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her hair was matted, falling across a gaunt face. Her eyes, wide and red-rimmed, met mine. It was Sarah. My Sarah. 5 years she had been gone. An impossible joy mixed with a cold disbelief held me still. My heart hammered against my ribs. I saw weariness on her face, tears glistening on her cheeks. She was here. My hand dropped. "Sarah?" I asked, my voice barely a breath. Her head dipped once, a tiny movement. Her voice came out rough and ragged, as if she had not spoken in years. "Mom," she said, just that one word. Her eyes flickered past me, scanning the yard and then the empty street. A shiver ran through her body. I reached for her, my fingers brushing her arm. She flinched away, not much, but enough for me to see it. Her gaze darted back to the darkness beyond my porch light. "Get in," I said, urgency seizing me. I pulled her by the arm, drawing her into the house. The door clicked shut behind her. I stood there, my back against the wood, watching her. Her eyes moved quickly, from the windows to the door, then back again. Her breathing was shallow, rapid. She held her arms tightly across her chest. "What happened?" I asked, my own breath catching in my throat. I needed to know everything. She took a small step back. Her eyes, wide and fearful, locked onto mine for a moment before they glanced again at the front door. "I escaped," she whispered, the words thin and sharp in the quiet room. I nodded slowly. The urgency that had seized me moments before vanished. My hand settled on the door handle, cool beneath my palm. I looked at her, my voice even. "Yes, I know, honey." Sarah's wide, fearful eyes studied my face. I continued, "But I moved houses." The words were simple, declarative. Sarah's breathing hitched, a sharp sound in the small room. Her gaze darted from the window to the door, then back to my face. The fear in her eyes twisted, becoming something else, something I recognized. Her lips parted slightly. No sound came out. She stared at me, her chest rising and falling quickly.